So in my first year, everything happened to be very explorative. I remember there being class.
Hi Simran, welcome to De-Education. It's a pleasure hosting you today on our show.
Hi Tej, nice to be here.
So Simran, how was your day so far?
It was good. It was a Saturday. It was nice. Otherwise, I'd be bugging you with all my questions around how to do work.
That's true. Cool, Simran. So why don't you just give a brief about yourself to our viewers out there?
Yeah. So my name is Simran. I am a UX designer working with Tej at Microsoft currently. I graduated from Srishti Institute of Art, Design and Technology. It's based out of Bangalore in this place called Yelahanka. It's a nice design school with like a knack to everything design that I have ever come across. And my experience has been very recent. So they go all across from visual communication to human-centered design, which is what I graduated in, to experimental media arts, to film, and to many other sectors of design that I have possibly been able to imagine. And yeah, it's a nice place to have been from and the culture to have been experienced. Yeah, that's like a brief summary.
That's great, Simran. So what was your journey into design and how did you start?
Yeah. So I come from a family of engineers. My dad was an engineer, my elder sister is an engineer. And so at a very early stage in my life, I knew that my inclination had to be in that direction, but it wasn't something I honestly, genuinely wanted to pursue in the same way. So I knew that like growing up with Disney and with Google Doodles and these little things on the internet that we came across, I knew that I wanted to learn more about it and explore what it means. And very early on, I knew that animation was something was very interesting to me. And I remember my dad taking me to one of these conferences that spoke of animation and them breaking down the whole aspect of animation to three things. They said, position, scale, and rotation. If you try like a combination of these three things, you'll be able to ace whatever animation means in the 2D world. And it was such a great insight to have learned from, to know that, oh, there is like a system around, what we see on screens, which is super cool. So it started there. I went to design school thinking that, like, I wasn't really wanting to go to design school. Particularly, I was giving my engineering entrances and everything. But I gave an exam for Srishti, I gave an exam for NIFT, and it sounded like I had a knack for it because I cracked the exam. And that's how I ended up there. I was given something called business system and service design. But in my first year, because everything was very exploratory and everything, so I tested out different things, spoke to a lot of different people, and sort of decided on human-centered design to be something I wanted to pursue. And that's what I chose to do. Yeah.
So Simran, could you just explain us about the course and a bit more detail on your specialization?
For sure. So in my first year, everything happened to be very explorative. I remember there being classes where, they took us to a site, they asked us to observe what is going on and just stare at like this one visual everybody's looking at. Come back in 10 minutes. There was a time constraint. Come back in 10 minutes and tell us all that you saw. Like, tell us every depth of detail of what you have been looking at. And then half an hour later, go back to there, take a picture, come back. And now that you're back with the picture, tell us what is the difference between the two things that you observe. And between the two things, that's when like these were little triggers that they tried to place us within to sort of see, how much your eye can miss out on, how much you could be biased towards looking at some things and other things. And these were the kind of experiences I got to have in my first year, but I wasn't sure how much of it was business centered or human centered. But early on, I knew that my friends who were pursuing these different directions, to speak to them, to speak to professors, to speak to the classes that I was attending, to know that human centered design was interesting. And I'll tell you how that was interesting. To me personally, interacting with technology has been something that drove me to design and even engineering, like I said before. But it was only because it was a system that was able to like get me the answer at the exact moment that I'm looking for something. It wasn't like waiting to have a conversation with somebody else to like, you know, get to a conclusion like that. It was something that was available at the tip of when I needed it to be. So those kind of interactions, I didn't know that they had like a system of creating them and a system of understanding that, you know, you could place what a person is looking for in the center, design around it, and then translate it to the tech that is developed. My understanding from beforehand with this whole bias of engineering was that, you know, we have the tools to create it, let's create something. This was like the flip side of it, wherein we could tell that, you know, this is the need, this is how it functions, this is how a person looks for it, and hence this is how the tech should be uh, doing so. And it was extremely liberating for me to know, like my first year into college, because that's when I knew that, you know, everybody in my life has been telling me to do engineering. I could just like come ahead and tell them that, you know, there's another step to this that you may have missed out, or you may have not been able to explicitly tell me about, and here's what I have to offer.
That's
Yeah.
a wonderful journey, Simran. So, how was your experience in terms of Srishti, and why did you pick Srishti when there was NIFT and NIDs?
Yeah. So to be honest, NID ka exam is not something that I gave even back then, because I was sort of inclined towards mathematics and economics also when I was pursuing science in high school. And I was okay to like take maths or economics up when I was going to graduate. But somewhere inside of me, I did know that engineering was not something that was going to gel well with me, even though I would have gotten into like an engineering school easily and done the thing that most people do. But with design, it just happened so organically that there was like no two questions about it. I just went with it. And choosing between like Srishti was one of the places that I ended up applying to, because I have folks in Bangalore who have told me so much about it. Like Srishti is an art school by default, and it is something that started in 1990 or 95, where fine arts was the thing that they started with. But over time, eventually, like they have sort of been able to ace what design education is about. And what I like about that school a lot is the kind of culture that they've been able to inculcate through like all across all of my 4 years. And I could talk a little more about it, so I'm going to. They all across my 4 years, I think, you know, coming from this whole place of confusion to know that there is something that exists within education that you could contribute from has been so liberating, because they always knew how to keep you going, which is to say that you have all of these questions about things, you are curious about so much, but you don't get that sense of validation. And when you're so confused and curious about everything, it's the system by itself that urges you to ask more. It urges you to, like, your professors are going to be so helpful. Like, they're not going to give you any answers ever. Like, let me be upfront about that. It's not like they'll ever come to you with answers, but they'll give you directions that you're going to be able to find answers. It's not been based out of textbooks. It's not been based out of the brief that you are given ever. Like, it's never going to be, if you've chosen to be in design. But it always does come from getting the direction, getting the input from the user, getting from how people are responding to what you have created to then make improvements. And that's something I got to learn early on when I was in design school.
That's nice, Simran. So, what sort of exams or how was your procedure to get an admit into Srishti for this
Right.
particular course?
Right. Remember there being exams around like logical reasoning, mathematical reasoning, what pattern follows after looking at three visual representations that exist. Ki iske baad next, what is the thing that's going to pop up? And apart from that, I remember there being like trivial questions around what is the kind of textile that exists in Gujarat, what is the kind of handicraft they end up doing. And this was just general knowledge that I was lucky to have had when I was writing that exam, because with the background that I come from, I was able to like answer these things because I knew about them. But I'm sure it's also something that you do get to experience through preparing for these exams. So that was kind of nice. There was also like a section where they made us draw a scenario based on what they had written down, and to sketch out how it would look once you sketch it out. And these little things all together accumulated into a written assessment. And I remember not drawing efficiently, or not coloring things enough and not shading things enough, and not not representing it to its full extent like most people do. And I remember people around me who had like all of these art equipment answering these written papers, but I wasn't one of those people, and I felt really insecure after like having given the paper. But later I when the results came out, I checked like ahead and behind of me, and I saw that not everybody passed those exams when they went into that depth and detail, and I ended up passing it. And I don't know why that was, but now I sort of reason it out by saying that it's the kind of thinking that they are always looking for. So from there, it was the first thing was a written exam. The next thing was an interview, and that interview sort of needed us to come with a model. They had given us a small brief for this interview where they said, we have these 10 different artifacts, and those artifacts ranged from tetra packs to metal wires to paper to any kind. Like there was a list of 10 kind of materials, and they put a constraint on us by saying that pick 3 of them, create a model, create a concept around it, plus on top of this whole model bring to us your portfolio, and then we will talk to you at your interview. So what I ended up doing was I picked up wire, I picked up tetra packs, and I picked up one other thing that I can't remember, and I created like this tree with it. Like the wire, I just coiled it together, I created a tree, and I created like this jhula, like this swing hanging from the tree. And I just took it to my Srishti interview. And I remember how that interview went, wherein I spoke to them about this tree from this aspect of Malgudi days, like Malgudi, and I spoke to them about it from this whole idea of this is a very technical looking tree. It looks like it's coming from wires and everything, only because this is like the futuristic view of how we think we are interacting with each other. Nobody steps out in the open so often anymore. So I spoke to them about all of these different tangents, and I also then brought to them this whole inspiration from the Whomping Willow from Harry Potter. And I just got all of the things that came to my mind around it to them, and I don't know whether they found it like entertaining, or they recognized that I was faffing. But I also very honestly told them that my portfolio that I brought to them was done in 3 days. It wasn't like I was applying for a design course ever. It was something I did in 3 days. It was something I was able to collect from, like, honestly, I used to draw and paint before too. And they also had asked another thing that they had added to this whole model and paper was also making a poster. Like they asked us to make a poster around some social issue. And I remember at the time, it was 2016, I created a poster around um, internet safety. Like how could you be more safe on the internet when you approach these different websites, and how do you like create your presence better? So put all of that put together, and my conversation with them, I don't know what must have clicked, but I do think that something along trying to piece different things together was something that ended up working. Yeah, that's how the Srishti interview at my time was.
That's great, Simran. So you graduated in 2021, right?
No, it was 2020, but it was the batch of the pandemic.
Oh, nice, nice. So how was your experience in terms of, dealing with faculty or, accessing the alumni network through Srishti?
Right. So this is going to come across as advice for everybody, but never ever assume that your faculty is ever going to have answers for you. They are only going to have directions. And if you have questions that are critical questions to whatever problem you're trying to solve, they are always going to be very open and honest questions, because you're not alone to have those questions. It's like you create something, you are going to approach many different sorts of people with them. And like out of those many people, some people are going to have the same questions as you. So it's not like that one person or faculty who is, taking care of the course is ever going to have those answers. They are only going to have directions, and they're only going to know more people in the same domain who are going to be able to lead you to directions again. Nobody ever has answers in the domain of design. And I feel like that's the learning I was able to establish going to a D school, and like being able to practice it over and over to accept the fact that nobody really has answers.
That's wonderful, Simran. So let's talk about your experience in terms of getting an internship or getting a placement via college.
Yeah. So, like I said, human-centered design was something I was able to switch to in second year. And I made sure I was surrounding myself with people with similar interests. And that was only and only to be able to have similar conversations, to be able to discuss what I'm thinking, to be able to learn from my peers around me. And this is something I can't emphasize enough. But you should strive to do while you're in a design school. Try to be as collaborative, try to learn from each other as much, because again, like I said, nobody has answers. It's just that you can have more questions together and you can discuss those questions together. So once you surround yourself with all of these people, it helps you learn from one another. With the same people that I was interacting with, all of us together wanted to take up opportunities within whatever we were able to find. When you are fresh into design school, nobody really takes you seriously. Like, yeah, you're studying design, yeah, sure, you can come help us with a button here and there. But we sort of found opportunities where people were actually creating websites and doing, like, I remember working for India Biodiversity Portal. It's a portal like Facebook, which has a lot of flora and fauna listed there, and a lot of experts in those domains sort of map it out on the map of India. This flora, this kind of plant species is available in this place, this kind of animal species is available in this place. And all of that was sort of on a portal, an outdated sort of portal. If you look at it, not everybody from today's day and age would be able to associate or learn what is going on there. But having spoken to the experts in that domain, me and two of my friends, we sort of came together to sort of bring a more modernized approach to how it was displayed. And this was like a freelance project that we ended up picking up. And apart from that, and even in my second and third year vacations, I was wanting to do a little more, because I really wanted to learn more from what is going on in the industry, so that I was sharp enough to see that this is the kind of things that exist outside of D school. And I hope I'm not in a bubble where I'm learning about it in in all of this, while surrounded by all the people that think similarly as me. Because the whole point of design is that you're opening things up to people from all places. As far as campus placement goes in Srishti, Srishti was acquired by Srishti Manipal Institute of Art, Design and Technology. So Manipal has recently acquired Srishti, and this happened at the same year as my graduation. So I don't know how much changes since then, but while I was graduating, there was one essential rule that we came to learn about, wherein our administration sort of believed that we don't sell our students. And by that they mean that if we are looking for an opportunity, we can very much by ourselves apply for them and get what we want. We were so by that logic and reason, there wasn't a placement cell or anything in my college at the time. But the kind of support that we were able to get from Srishti was through mentors. So each of us were assigned a mentor which was a faculty, and each faculty had like 6 to 10 mentees under them, and they were able to leverage their own network towards us based on what interests we wanted to pursue. And apart from that, we would also be part of like mailing lists and emails from people in the industry who would approach Srishti for their talent, and then they would forward them to us, all of us, and we would be able to approach them through those very emails. So it wasn't like a placement cell where companies come and recruit us and speak to us directly. It was through this emailing system where we would reach out for what we wanted to do. And it had its own pros and cons. Like when you compare yourself to like all these other colleges that have placements, you do feel like, you know, you don't have enough support. But I feel like over time it really like put us on our feet and like really pushed us to like reach out for what we want, for what we want to do more courageously and more with a lot of more depth and detail. So I think that worked out well.
That's great, Simran, and thanks for sharing all these wonderful insights with us. So let's conclude the show by you talking about like how design education has shaped you a better designer.
That's a fun question. Um, I think a lot of people would end up saying this as well, but the whole idea of design is to function seamlessly, in my opinion. And when you say something like that, and when you are trying to like create solutions in the tech field or whichever context that you place yourself in, you want things to be seamless for a user, right? And you want things to be like as little effort and as maximum uh, productivity for them. But and that's easy to do with like a design education that you gather, but how it influences your own personal life is a whole other game. Like when you look at your own life and how you can optimize your own life and how you can like be more productive in your own sense and keep yourself sane enough to make these decisions for all these other technological things, it really like shapes you as a person as well. And it makes you question how, you know, how reorganizing your own cupboard and your own life and your own room has association to reorganizing the information architecture of a website. To like it has the potential to drive you crazy because you're going to see these associations everywhere. But at the same time, once you get over it, it's the most natural thing to do. So I feel like that's my first instinctive answer to this. But yeah, design is something that also makes you universally optimistic. It's something that that you know you're going to be able to move out of any situation from very optimistically. Like you are always going to have hope. You always know there is a solution around it once you accept all the nitty gritties that put you down.
That's a deep answer, Simran, and thanks for sharing all these wonderful insights. So, our viewers, if you have any doubts in terms of Srishti and what journey you have to choose at your early career, feel free to reach out to Simran. I'll be dropping her LinkedIn and Instagram as well in the description below. So, once again, thanks, Simran. Have a great weekend. Cheers. Bye.
You too. You too. Thanks for having me here. I'm sorry, cut. What was the question? Cut. You say cut so that your person knows to cut. But
You say cut, I say cut, cut ही होता है.
A few moments later.
question though.